On today's show, a look back on the trade that sent TJ Oshie to the Capitals, and is it time to get a look at Ethen Frank on the Capitals?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, I take a peek back on the trade that sent TJ Oshie to the Capitals. At the time, there was some question. Was that a good move? That sent Troy Brouwer out to the Blues, and it sent Oshie to the Capitals. So take a look back on that one. Who won that trade? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about, there are questions on the third line about LaPierre, Ivan Miroshnichenko, but is there a guy that's waiting for his opportunity, that's waving his arm saying, hey, what about taking a look at me? Could Ethen Frank be that guy? I'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, I'll talk about Aliaksei Protas and his huge impact on this team. But just to get it going here, just to reminisce here a little bit, as the Capitals do not play until Saturday, and a kind of a fun look back on that trade so many years ago that sent TJ Oshie to the Capitals and Troy Brouwer. I'll break down that deal a little bit more. And just to take a look back on it, do I think it was worth it? Absolutely. TJ Oshie is by far one of my favorite all-time Capitals. He is a great guy on the ice, off the ice. Everyone loves TJ Oshie. Let's take a look back on that deal so many years ago. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a deep dive into that deal that sent TJ Oshie to DC in exchange for Troy Brouwer, Pheonix Copley, and a third-round pick in the 2016 NHL draft. And it was one of those moves that I think you take a look at TJ Oshie on the Blues, was a good player, came to the Capitals, grew by leaps and bounds. But taking a look back, at the time, it wasn't immediately clear, I'm going to say, who was the winner of the trade. At the time, Troy Brouwer was a big contributor on the Capitals, and Pheonix Copley was one of the goaltenders of the future for the Capitals. So, it's easy to look back on it in retrospect and go, of course, the TJ Oshie deal was a slam dunk. Yeah, we know that now, but what did we think back then? But looking back, it's pretty evident that the Capitals came out on top. So say you are a new Capitals fan, or say you need a bit of a refresher to do a trade breakdown here. The Blues moved Oshie to free up $4.175 million in cap space, bringing in Brouwer, who had a cap hit of $3.66 million. You take a look at it, sure, they saved a little cash, but they lost out on Oshie's offensive production, which became crucial for the Capitals, a game changer for this team. So taking a look back on it, quite something. And then you take a look at Brouwer in his time with the Blues, Brouwer power and all of that. We remember how huge of a piece he was with his time on the Capitals, and his time on the Blues was not as good. Brouwer had a decent season, looking back on it, with the Blues racking up 39 points in 82 games. And of course, he scored a pivotal goal during the Blues playoff run that year. However, though, I'm going to say his time in St. Louis was short-lived, as he moved to Calgary the following season. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Troy Brouwer on the Capitals, well, that was his time with the Capitals, was the high water mark of his career, or one of his better years, I guess I will say. And then the other player in the deal as well, Pheonix Copley, a guy, if we want to talk about Pheonix Copley here for a while, it was always going to be his year, but never was his year. You take a look at it, Braden Holtby at the time was the guy that rose to the top. And for whatever reason, Pheonix Copley, who did have opportunities on the big team with the Capitals, just never made that position his own. If we remember down the line there a little bit, it was Vanacek and Samsonov, and Pheonix Copley kind of got lost in the mix. He just played 2 games for the Blues, allowing 5 goals and failing to secure a win. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, I was a little bit upset because at the time, again, this was quite a bit of time ago, I was thinking that Pheonix Copley was going to be that bright spot on the team. So in a bit of a twist of fate, it was interesting. He returned to the Capitals in February of 2017 as a part of that Kevin Shattenkirk trade. That is Kevin Shattenkirk. If we want to take a look back on it, that is definitely a case of pushing all your chips in on like a rental type situation. And ultimately Shattenkirk and the Capitals, well, that really never fizzled. It didn't amount to anything. The Blues ended up getting Zach Sanford, who, if you remember, if you're a longtime Capital, was one of the big prospect talents for the Capitals. He was really coming into his own. I liked Zach Sanford's game, and also Brad Malone and a first-round pick, which they used to acquire Braden Shen. So those are the pieces that are in play. So you take a look at it. Again, retrospect, you look back on it. Oshie, I would have done it again. There are other deals that the Capitals have made, Philip Forsberg, that I would not have done. So you take a look back on it, it's interesting. So the aftermath, Sanford really found his stride during the 2019 Stanley Cup, scoring 4 points in the last 5 games and netting the final goal of the series. Always liked Sanford's game. One of the guys back then, I was hoping that, kind of like how Copley made his way back to the Capitals, Sanford would have done that. As for the 3rd-round pick from the original Oshie trade, the Blues bundled it with another pick during the 2016 draft to land 1st-round selection, which they used to draft Tage Thompson, quite a name in the NHL, who later became a part of the Ryan O'Reilly trade. So these are all the moving pieces here. So let's get back to Oshie. I kind of got you the lay of the land and who moved what, where, why, when. But back to Oshie, when he joined the Caps, it was clear he was a perfect fit, adding a right winger to skate alongside Alexander Ovechkin. That's something. That's a lot of faith put into a guy like TJ Oshie. And the one thing right away that was abundantly clear for me with Oshie is a playmaker. He is willing to take on the biggest guy out on the ice, even if it's at his peril. I think about Thornton and him rubbing him out against the boards and how he got injured. And he never let anyone stand in his way, even though he wasn't the biggest guy on the ice. In his first season with the Caps, he scored 51 points in 80 games, but he really hit his stride in the 16-17 season, if we remember back, with a career-high 33 goals and a plus 28 rating. So right away, that big impact was evident. That performance got him that massive 8-year, $46 million contract with the Capitals. But for him, it was still about overcoming challenges. Now the 1920 season had a rocky start for Oshie. Many wondered if it was worth a mega deal, as is often the case with these big deals. Sometimes, you give a player a big deal and they don't live up to that potential, but was not the case for Oshie. He bounced back, ending up with 47 points in 74 games. Despite some injury struggles in previous years, he remained a key part of the team and has been for the most part. The one thing that is a constant with TJ Oshie is he's prone to being injured because, well, he plays much bigger than he is. But let's remember back. Where he really earned his paycheck was those playoff heroics. And who can forget Oshie's heroics during the Capitals Stanley Cup run? He lit up with 8 goals, including 2 game winners and 13 assists, proving himself invaluable, especially on the PP. So taking a look back on it, do I think the TJ Oshie deal was worth it? Absolutely. As Troy Brouwer, we were, he was on the Blues, went to the Flames. Take a look at Copley, never really found his way with the Capitals and subsequently got dealt out of town. So you take a look at it. It was a tough thing I had hopes for Pheonix Copley that he was going to be one of the key pieces of the future. I thought Brouwer was really big at the time, so there was some question at the time if it was the right deal to make. But Oshie definitely has lived up to that. Now, although Oshie has faced challenges with chronic back issues, that may affect his career moving forward, which I would be surprised if Oshie ever plays another game of hockey again. Again, that would make for a really good, Disney story if he came back in the playoffs and just really helped the Capitals win a Stanley Cup. Would that be something? But let's not overlook the return of Copley to the Caps. He made a solid impact over 2 seasons before heading to the Kings. And his first time with the Kings was really popping off the page. As we know now that Darcy Kemper is also on the Kings. Now, when you weigh everything, the fact that Oshie's been pivotal in helping the Capitals bring home a cup along with a long-term deal makes it clear that the Capitals definitely won this trade. Again, they don't always go that way. And historically, the Capitals have made good trades. A couple stinkers. Again, all these years later, I'm still having a hard time with the Filip Forsberg deal. You take a look at it. Capitals fans weigh in. Hit me up on Twitter at DanCaps218 at LockedOnCaps or on YouTube and say, it's been a long time. And that the Predators are not where they want to be. And Barry Trotz is the GM of that team. If there was a move out there that we could make that right to send Filip Forsberg back to the Capitals, would you entertain it? Or is that too far gone? For me, it's still there. It still stings. And much like national tragedies, I remember exactly where I was on 9/11. I remember exactly where I was when I heard about that Filip Forsberg got traded out of town and what the Capitals got in return. And the whole time thinking of that. But that's rather here nor there. It's sometimes fun to sit back and reminisce. In this first segment, I talked about the Oshie trade. Was it worth it? My take on it, absolutely. Oshie, a fan favorite, a Dan favorite. And I think the Capitals, in fact, I know would have never won the Stanley Cup had it not been for Oshie's heroics. All right, so coming up here after the break, I will talk about Ethen Frank, the guy that has a need for speed. Questions on the third line. Ethen Frank's going, hey, guys, what about me? It's my time to shine. I'll break it all down straight ahead. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called the Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And let me tell you something, guys, that is the frustrating part. My favorite band came to town. My favorite sports teams playing, and there is a plethora of options for buying tickets. But how much are the tickets? What is the view of the stage or the playing surface going to be? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And I want to thank all of you for making this your first Capitals listen of the day. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about a player that I think is deserving of a look. Now, to be clear here, I know that we have seen him in camp and hasn't necessarily popped off the page, but I think that there are questions on the third line. Hendrik Slapierre, I don't think he has it. Right now, I don't think he has it. Miroshnichenko, I thought that he was going to be the guy, but has kind of been in Spencer Carberry's doghouse here as of late. And why? Why do I say this? Is because, well, what do we know is going to happen, could very well happen on Saturday, is that Alex Ovechkin will be making his return back to the Capitals. So the Capitals will have to part with one player, sending him down to Hershey, whatever the case might be. I know that Miro got the call up. But is he going to be the one that gets called down? What about Lapierre? And what about Ethen Frank. That is what we're going to dive into in this segment here. If you don't know Frank, a talented forward for the Bears who has made a significant impact in the AHL. So let's rewind the time and take a look back on Ethen. Kicked off his pro career impressively. He was one of the guys that made his mark, earning a spot at the AHL's All-Star Classic in 2023. And just to make a statement on what kind of player he is, on his 25th birthday, he became the talk of the league by dominating the CCM fastest skater event, completing it in an unprecedented 12.915 seconds. That's very quick. This groundbreaking performance made him the first player in the AHL and NHL to break the 13-second barrier. Capitals, old and slow. Not so much old anymore, but still could get quicker. Could Ethen Frank be that guy, securing him with the title of the fastest man in hockey? But it's not just that. It's in a league of what have you done for me lately. Following that stellar performance, Ethen finished the season with 30 goals, ranking him 7th among all skaters and leading all rookies. You take a look at it. That remarkable achievement earned him an NHL contract with the Caps, a spot on the AHL's rookie team, and a key role in Hershey's Calder Cup victory. Back-to-back Calder Cup victories, and he's been a part of that. Contributing significantly with an assist on the game-winning in Game 7 against Coachella Valley Firebirds. And you take a look at it. Again, continued success. If he had one great season, you might think to yourself, well, he got lucky. It was a flash in the pan. But Ethen continued to impress by successfully defending his fastest skater title in 2024, clocking in at 13.032. You take a look at it. Hershey triumphed in championship against Coachella Valley again, with Ethen showcasing his speed scoring ability consistently through his AHL tenure. And it's one of the things that I keep thinking to myself. I talked about this last year about players that I wanted to get a good look at. Pheonix Copley was that guy. We got a brief glimpse of him because he was knocking it out of the park in the goal scoring department for Hershey. Didn't really impress on the Capitals. So I'm always, I have a bit of reservation when I lift these guys up and say, hey, this guy's going to be the next guy. I think there's a good chance that Ethen Frank can make an impression. I don't know for sure, just because when I've made these predictions, sometimes they don't hold true, like Pheonix Copley and these kind of players, for example. Now, to be a complete assessor of things, Pheonix Copley had a very limited sample size. How would he have performed in a longer test? So what I'm getting back into here is I think that Ethen Frank is playing very well in Hershey, has for the last couple of years here, fastest skater, all these accolades helping the Hershey Bears in the Calder Cup there. Why not take a look at him on the big team? One, LaPierre is a question mark. Miro is a question mark. Let's get a good look at a guy that's brewing down in Hershey. Now, it's not just me saying it. Todd Nelson has hailed Ethen's breakout performance, noting that it put him on the league's radar. Nelson believes that Ethen's competitive skills make him a strong candidate for future competitions. And you take a look at it, Ethen himself looks forward to representing the Bears and collaborating with his teammates and coaches once again. Can the Bears three-peat? That's a question. And if they can do that, I will be so impressed. The Hershey Bears continue to be dominant, and that's due in large part to players like Ethen Frank and also guys like Todd Nelson. But, you take a look back on Ethen Frank, it's about overcoming challenges. Ethen's journey hasn't been without its difficulties. He's struggled at points, just like every other good player. His rookie season, particularly during the Calder Cup playoffs, was tough. But however, after clinching the Calder Cup in 23, he bounced back impressively, leading the league last postseason with 10 goals and 4 game winners as the Bears defended their title. So to say he was a huge piece in the Bears winning back-to-backs, yes, I guess you could say that. Now, you take a look at the current season. As this season began, all eyes were on Ethen to see if he could secure a spot on the big team, the Capitals. I spoke about it on the show, thinking that there was a distinct possibility. Now, despite not making the cut after 3 preseason games, the setback has only intensified his motivation. He's already made a strong start this season, scoring 19 goals, including a hat trick on the opening night against Cleveland. So quite something if you think about it. And talking about his teammate relations, teammates like Mike Vecchione have witnessed Ethen's growth up close, and they share a strong bond both on and off the ice. So in conclusion, my thoughts on it: Ethen Frank has shown tremendous growth and talent and determination, which suggest he could be ready for the Capitals fairly soon. Again, I think now would be a good chance. Because there's going to be tough questions about who is going to be on the team. And despite not making the roster after the preseason, his strong start to the current season, where he scored 19 goals, indicates he's on the right track. Is now the right time? That is the question. If you're asking me, if I am the GM at the moment, yes, I think this would be a good opportunity to see what we have in a guy like Ethen Frank. We'll never know unless we try it out. We know that he's excelled with the Hershey Bears. Let's get a look, as that third line is still one of those lines out there that still has a lot of question marks. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about another player that has really popped off the page, and that is Aliaksei Protas. I'll talk about Aliaksei next. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get on regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which player will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Listen, guys, I know that any given Sunday, there is a lot of football that's being played. It's Sunday, Monday, or Thursday. And maybe it's a Commanders game. Maybe it's a Ravens game and you're into it. But if you want to be interested in all those games, just visit FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. So in this next segment here, we're going to talk about a player that has really grown by leaps and bounds, and that is Aliaksei Protas. And it doesn't matter where you put him, because to start the season, he was going to be on the third line. We've seen him on the first line, the second line. It doesn't matter where you put him. He excels. But what is it about this season that's really taken his game to that next level? Part of it, I'm going to go ahead and say, is confidence, and also surrounding himself with really great players. He's got the hulking frame. He's got a good shot. He can drive the net, and he's not easily driven off. There is a lot to like about his game. So you take a look back on it, just to rewind time. The Capitals saw his potential from the get-go as the Capitals approached the 2019 NHL draft. Protas, if you remember back, was ranked as the 30th best North American skater and was selected 91st overall by the Capitals. And if we rewind time back to the 1920 season, Protas, even at a young age, lit it up in the WHL, playing with the Prince Albert Raiders, racking up 80 points in just 58 games. That made him the highest scoring European player and placed him 9th in the WHL in scoring. And that's kind of, what really put everyone on notice about Protas, that he is not, necessarily a household name, or definitely wasn't back then, but he is the kind of guy that has made the most of his opportunity. And also taking a look back, even in the 2020-21 season, he was loaned to Dynamo Minsk in the KHL, where he put up 18 points in 58 games and added 4 points in 5 playoff games. And let's not forget, he made the NHL debut with the Capitals in 21-22, scoring his first goal back on November 28th. Definitely a moment to remember. And, I remember him joining camp a couple seasons ago and thinking to myself, hey, there was no plans of him making the team, but what he's done throughout his entire career is impress. He played so well. He got a contract extension. Fast forward to January 19th of 24, Protas signed a 5-year contract extension with the Caps worth an AAV of $3.375 million. That keeps him locked up through the 28-29 season. Quite a vote of confidence by the Capitals organization. And at the time, after he signed that deal, he didn't necessarily, I guess I'm going to say, live up to what I had hoped for. But this season, he has taken his game to the next level. This season, his performance now just at 23 years old, still a very young man, Protas is not only meeting expectations, but absolutely exceeding all expectations. You take a look back, last year he scored 13 goals, but this season, while he's on a roll, after just 33 games, he's already netted 14 goals and is almost averaging a point per game. That's what we're looking for. Constant contributor no matter where you place him. He's matched his career high of 29 points from last season, all playing in 45 fewer games. So that's quite impressive. If he keeps on this pace, we might be looking at a 72-point season for Aliaksei Protas. Tell me if you had that on your bingo card to start the season. So keys to his success, oftentimes people ask me about that, is his stellar performance in 5-on-5 situations. He really excels. Protas ranks 10th in the NHL for scoring in those scenarios, which has been crucial for this team, especially with Ovi sideline. They were looking for a hero, and Protas has been that. And you don't want to know something. Protas humbly credits his teammates. He is a guy, I guess I'm going to say kind of like Nick Backstrom, who eats a steady diet of humble pie, emphasizing how he gets support from his teammates and helped him shine on the ice. It's a better attitude than being arrogant anyway. So the one thing that's apparent is that the Capitals giving him that extension are confident in him, and it isn't really surprising to see him thriving. And you take a look at his brother as well with Ilya. I think that it could be a Protas situation in the Capitals in the somewhat, mid-future, shall we say. But beyond that, his hockey IQ. And that's a term that's thrown around quite a bit. I talked about that with TJ Oshie as well. Is that what he has? He sees the ice very well. He is extremely able to find the open net or feed it to the right guy or whatever the case. His extraordinary ability to read plays, anticipate movements, and position himself strategically. And, I think we've seen this team this year grow, and it's not, in a lot of cases, it's the same players. I think that Spencer Carberry has rolled out different systems, but I think it's also the complementary pieces that are in place that are around him that have really helped him excel. His smart decision-making and composure under pressure have earned him the trust of the coaching staff, leading to more responsibility and ice time. So that's what we look forward to this year, is for Aliaksei Protas to keep doing what he's doing, because he is definitely going to be one of the faces of the future. And if you take a look at him as he continues to hone his skills, we're excited to see him step into the prime of his career. The Capitals need it. Again, this team is a team in transition. Ovechkin has this year and next year under contract, and then I think it will truly usher in the next wave. That's going to even start next year with Leonard, Crystal, these kind of players. And I think that Aliaksei Protas figures to be one of those pieces as well. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.